Ladies and gentlemen, gits and grots, welcome. We are about to close out this season of Warhammer 40,000. It is the end of the Arcs of Omen. Vastor's last arc has been found. The Lion has returned. And we are getting ready to move on into 10th edition. And everyone's super excited for 10th edition, including myself. All the changes I've seen look amazing. So, in order to close out 9th edition, which I 1000% believe is the best version of Warhammer 40,000 we have ever had, I'm going to send us off with a beautiful tier list of where the meta is right now. Now, when I do this meta list, what I am going to be ranking is the potential of the codexes played by the top level players. I'm not ranking it based off of how it is with win rate percentage. I think win rate percentage is a fairly poor window of looking into how good an army is. For example, Imperial Guard is not having that great a win percentage. They're like, 51% right now? But they're a heck of a lot better than that. So, when I do these tier rankings, S is going to be the unstoppable, amazing, oh crap, I can't believe I have to face these guys in the tournament. A is going to be all the guys who can compete against anyone. B is going to be your solid, good, reasonable codexes, but they're really going to have a hard time going into the S's. C is going to be the codexes that are lagging behind, and D will be the codexes that just honestly, you're only playing them for fun, which is totally fine because it's the end of the edition and we're getting ready to go into 10th. So let's get right into it. As in every single video that I do, this will be I will actually be giving a tactical overview of everything I talk about because this is your tactics-focused Warhammer 40,000 channel. Happy Crumpin' Wargaming. Let's get right into it. All right, the number one codex right here, we're just going to jump right into it. Aeldari, it's the Elves. I'm going to give you a really, really hot take. I'm going to put the Elves right up into S tier. I know everyone hates me. They all think I'm stupid for doing this. The win percentage for the Elves isn't that good. Here's the deal, everyone. The Elves have every single trick in the entire book. They have shoot and scoot. They have fall back and shoot. They have fall back and charge. They have fall back, shoot and charge. They have pre-game redeploys. They have the most mobility of any codex in the entire game. You have units that can move 44 inches in a turn in the Aeldari Codex. Then you have units who don't care because they can just teleport. They've got multiples of these units. They have the most dominant psychic phase in the entire game. They can focus fire down any single unit in the entire game. Put the most unkillable unit down, the Eldar will still be able to kill it because they'll get the entire army rerolling wound rolls, and they'll get one death unit rerolling all hit rolls. They have amazing indirect shooting. It's only second only to Desolator Marines and Imperial Guard right now. They have great close combat. The Howling Banshees are the Howling Banshees have literally every single rule in the game. They can advance a charge. They can make you fight last. They get +1 to win. They're -1. It's stupid. They have a ton of infiltrators. The Aeldari have every single tool to use. They are incredible. Here's the problem with Aeldari. This is why you don't see them winning tournaments, okay? Aeldari are very mentally intensive to play. They are very fatiguing they're just very fatiguing to play because you can't make mistakes with them because they do die very easily. They don't have any durability. So if you misplay or if you don't save your Strands of Fate dice to get the critical psychic power that you really had to get off, your entire game plan can come to pieces. This is why the Codex doesn't have a great win rate. This is why you don't see it win tournaments, because in a tournament, by the time you're at the 5th round, or if you're at a super major at the 7th, 8th round, you're too exhausted. You make mistakes. Elves don't win tournaments because it is a very mentally fatiguing Codex. But if you are playing them, say, like on TTS, where people have days in between rounds, they're dominant. They're absolutely incredible, and a good elf player is one of the best codexes in the entire game. I will fight anyone who disagrees with me. I won't actually fight you because I like you most, or like most of you. I like most people, actually. But I would fight you for fun, not out of anger. Anyway, let's move on into the next codex, Astra Militarum. Where does everyone think Astra Militarum is going to go? These are the Imperial Guard. Right up at the top, in front of Aeldari. The Imperial Guard are unbelievably powerful right now. And there is a caveat on this. Imperial Guard must be playing Born Soldiers. I know some people are really liking the mechanized or the one that makes Sentinels count as multiple units on objectives. it all pales in comparison to the Born Soldiers. 6's auto wounding and shooting across the entire army is like a 30% damage boost to them. It's just unstoppable. When you have the Casterkin, okay, Casterkin were nerfed in the last balance data upslate. No, they really weren't. They were they really weren't. They're still going to be able to teleport anywhere in the game, turn 1, and delete any unit in the game by themselves because they're going to have full rerolls to hit, full rerolls to wound. They're going to cost 6 mortal wounds in addition to everything else. They're going to be hitting at AP3 with their basic unit, with their basic shots, and it's all going to be auto wounding on 5s to hit. They're still going to delete anything they look at for 100 points. It's unreasonably powerful. I know I've got a dear buddy of mine he's an amazing player, and now he's teching into Earthshaker cannons. If you guys don't know what Earthshaker cannons do, holy crap. These things are D6 plus 3 shots at strength 10, AP 2, damage 2. You got 3 of them in a unit, and they're all hitting on 4s. Oh my god, and they're indirect. They have a measly 240-inch range, so you might be able to avoid the range. Imperial Guard just have so many tools. You can't tag their tanks because their tanks will fire out of combat. Their tanks are still undercosted. I don't think they're criminally undercosted, but they are undercosted. They're just so amazing. They are really cheap. Their basic infantry will ignore phase caps because of the banner of "Screw You," which that is the dumbest relic in the history of. Well, maybe not history, but in the edition of Warhammer 40,000, the relic that lets you completely ignore all damage reduction. Oh my gosh. Or phase caps. So a basic infantry squad typically kills a Satan Shard pretty easily because they're all auto-wounding on 6s. Astra Militarum is probably the best codex in the game. There is 1 or 2 contenders, and we will get to them. All right, let's go into Chaos Knights. Chaos Knights are freaking awesome. They're at the middle to top of A tier. I love them. These guys have been a perennial just good freaking codex, and just with the way the meta is shaping up right now, they are super good because they counter a lot of the other A tier armies quite well. They're also a bit of a stat check. Can you deal with them? If you can't, you can't. Right now, the biggest way to play them is to be running the 14 Baby Knights. I think you can actually technically get 15 if you shave points somewhere, but I think 14 is the way to do it. They have the tools to handle anything in the game. They can handle hordes. They can handle tanks. They are just awesome. And they can also be very defensive with their knight abilities. I know I am terrified when I run into Chaos Knights with my Orcs because I know that basically every charge I'm going to make is going to be doubled in length because of the leadership shenanigans they can do. They can also make you runs on 1s and 2s, which means they make leadership actually matter. Matter a lot. They're freaking awesome. All right. Chaos Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines. Oh my. For right now, I'm going to put them in the C. This could change in a little bit, but here's the deal about Chaos Space Marines. They are missing 200 points worth of units. They're just missing 200 points worth of units. I love the Chaos Space Marines. Cult of Bile, everyone says Cult of Bile sucks now because they got nerfed. Cult of Bile doesn't suck now. They're just not top of the meta anymore. You've got some really amazing things in the Chaos Space Marine Codex. Alpha Legion. Alpha Legion has a secondary that they can choose, which turns off your objective, which means you can't score it ever. The problem is that they need 200 extra points in the armies. They just need it. If they don't get it, then they're going to lose. I love Chaos Space Marines. I think they have a lot of tools. I still think Possessed are probably the greatest value unit in the entire game. A single Possessed is 28 points. It is better than a Custodian Guard, and it moves 3 inches faster. So they're shockingly incredible. And it's 28 points to 50 points. That's right, or maybe 45 if you're with Spear. But anyway, so they're still the most cost-effective unit in the entire game, I think. But yeah, they're too expensive, and losing armor contempt was a big deal for them. And that's just a little sad. All right, let's go to the Adeptus Custodes. Now, this is one of my main armies, and I am solidly in the A tier with Adeptus Custodes right now. They're in a fantastic place. Is there any way I would actually change Adeptus Custodes right now? Not really. I would with the balanced out upslate, not being able to use your transhuman and your turn off rerolls on the same unit. That's fine. I can live with that. It's really no big deal. It's pretty solid. It works well, and I can live with that. So the only thing I would probably change on them right now is Their basic Custodian guards are a little too expensive. I'd probably drop them about 5 points. But besides that, it's a great codex. They can handle literally anyone except for Guard. Guard auto win against Custodes. I don't think it's possible for a Custodes to beat Imperial Guard. If the Imperial Guard is born soldiers and they're running an actual meta list, right? Because remember, as we're stacking this list here, it's good players using the correct builds of the army. But Custodes have the ability to mess up any army in the game. Now, I always run mine as Shadow Keepers because in Shadow Keepers, you're always -1 to hit. Or I'm sorry, not -1 to hit. You're always -1 attack, which is really good. It's also especially good against things with big sweep attacks because let's say you have a Bloodthirster and every time he sweeps, he makes 2 hit rolls. Well, you're -1 attack, which effectively makes you -2 hits. It really stacks quite well. They also... and then also in my Shadow Keepers, I always run them with, since they're Shadow Keepers, they get to reroll all wound rolls against characters, which is why, to date, I have never lost with my Custodes against demons. All demons just crumble to the Custodes. I don't see how, I honestly, I do not see how demons can beat Shadow Keeper Custodes specifically, unless you take no big demons and it's all maybe just like fiend spam. Then I can kind of I could see it, but I haven't run into anything like that. Everyone's always taking some big nasties and they just crumble to the Shadow Keepers. I know everyone else loves Emperor's Chosen or Emissaries Imperialis, and they're good. I'm certainly not talking bad about them at all, but Shadow Keepers is the way, baby. It also has the single most efficient character in the entire game of the United States of the United Imperium of man of Warhammer 40,000 in the Blade Champion. He is the greatest trade piece in the entire game. Basically, I did an entire video on him. If you haven't seen it, I'll link it below, and you really, really need to go check that out because it's a 120-point unit that nothing in the game can reliably kill. It's pretty shocking how amazing it is. Okay, so what's next up? We have the Death Guard. I love the Death Guard, but they're, man, you know what? If anything's going to be D, it's going to be them. Here's the deal about the Death Guard. They're actually, they're so freaking close to being a B to A tier army. They're missing a 5-up against mortal wounds. That's what they're missing. They have so many amazing tools. The -1 damage actually makes them a hard counter to Custodes, which is funny. They have a ton of OBSEC. They're really not that slow. I know everyone says, oh, they're so slow, they'll never go to the battlefield. But they're not that slow because they're never, they don't take any penalties to moving across difficult terrain. So if you have let's say a normal Space Marine, 6-inch movement, and he's moving across difficult terrain, his average advance roll is going to be a 3, which means he's going to move 9 inches and then -2 for the difficult terrain. So he's going to move 7 inches. If you take a Death Guard Plague Marine, he moves 5 inches. His average advance roll is going to be a 3, right? Or 3, maybe a 4. He's not going to be at -2 because he doesn't suffer penalties. So he's moving. How far is that? 5 + 3, 8 inches. So they actually don't move slow. It's kind of a myth. Now, I'm not saying they're Speedy Gonzalez, but they're not nearly as slow as people say they are. They've got great firepower. They have great points cost for all their units. Their characters are real dang strong. They can literally turn off fights. They can literally turn off charges across the entire map, depending on the play company that they're in. Death Guard have every tool they need to be amazing, except for mortal wound protection. And because of that, it's actually weird how much that one problem just knocks them down. Let's go into my other main army, because remember, I am an Adept Custodes player, but I am also a bringer of the Wa. Let's talk about the Orcs. Where do you guys think they're going? Solidly into the A tier. Actually, I put them right above Custodes, I think. Orcs are top 6 armies in the game. It's top 6, I think, of the armies in the game right now. They are freaking amazing. They have every tool in the world. They have a ton of bodies. They hit crazy hard. They have the one-turn wall, which really needs to be used correctly. Actually, sometimes when I'm in the Orcs, I actually use a defensive wall where I don't get the advance charge, and that's okay with me. Against Elves, a lot of times. Against Eldar, actually, I'll do a defensive wall turn 1 if I go first, which I typically try to go second against them, but, that plan doesn't always work out. Orcs have the strongest characters in the game next to the Adeptus Custodes. The brutal but cunning war boss is just disgusting. I always like to run it on my squig boss. I actually think I made a video on that as well. It makes them all nigh unkillable, and he just kills so much. I know in my teams list for Orcs right now, I'm running Gaz and double kill rig, and it is freaking incredible. In my individuals list, it's a little bit different. But the cool thing about the Orcs, guys, is that they have so much flexibility. It's shocking. I don't know of any other codex in the game right now that has as much flexibility in building as the Orcs do. You can run Burner Boys for the Zap Krumpas. Shout out to my buddy Felix. He loves doing that. You can do like me and spam those kill rigs, because I know everyone says kill rigs suck. They're wrong. In an individuals list, I would never bring more than one. But for teams, you can bring triple rig. You can bring double rig, like I'm doing right now. They have so much flexibility. The biggest problem with Orcs is their stratagems are just so freaking expensive. But you know what? I can live with that. They're not very durable, and I can also live with that because they hit like a freaking truck. You can't have an army that has literally every advantage. Orcs the codex design is really crappy, but thanks to the balanced data upslates that they've done, it ends up being actually a pretty good design. What they do is they do what they do very, very well, which is get up in your face and crump. That's why the name of this channel is Happy Crumpin', right? And they don't really care about their weaknesses, and they have plenty of weaknesses. They've got no armor. They've got no, they have some shooting, but it's really not great. And they don't have good stratagem access. They don't care about those because you build the army to focus on the army's strengths, not the army's weaknesses. I tend to harp on this all the time. People like to try to shore up the weaknesses of their army. I think that's generally speaking, it's an error. Let's take the Adeptus Custodes as an example for this for a moment. I know people were really excited to bring Helverins in a Adeptus Custodes list. I think it's a terrible idea because here's the deal. Adeptus Custodes are amazing at short to mid-range combat. They've got great shooting for mid-range. They've got great close combat control. If you give them a unit of 3 Helverins, that's going to be, 400-ish points. Sorry, I'm going to be off a little bit there. But that's almost a quarter of your army. And they give you pretty solid long-range firepower, which is something that the Custodes admittedly lack, unless you're running Caladius spam, but I don't really personally like Caladius spam. Well, people love this idea of running Helverins, right? My problem with that is that now you have reasonable long-range shooting, which is going to get annihilated against any army that has actual long-range shooting. So if you go against Tau, Votan, Imperial Guard, Iron Hands, your long range is going to do absolutely nothing. It's just going to immediately die. And then you're basically playing with 3/4 of an army for no reason. So I much rather use those 400 points to make my army do more of what it's already good at, which is that mid to short range control game. That's my thoughts on that. All right, let's look at Necrons. Necrons right now, I want to put them in A, but I think they're a B. I think they're top of B tier. Necrons have the ability to score all over the place. Their scoring is still a real dang good. And people who think it isn't, they're wrong. So Necrons can still store really, really well. Necrons run into actually a very similar problem as Orcs. They just die. They have really no defense. But they also do a very similar thing to Orcs where they hit like freaking trucks. A kitted out score pack unit or a kitted out Ophidian unit. Oh my gosh, those guys can do so much damage. But they do die like whoa. So I think Necrons are actually in a pretty good place right now. They're not top of the meta anymore, but they are still a very good army. I know a lot of people dropped them, but they just dropped them because they're no longer OP. And in competitive play, we people tend to chase the meta, and that's okay. Not everyone does it, but people do, and I don't really blame anyone for doing that. Because you want to win, right? So Necrons are still a good army. You can still win a tournament with them. You can still crush foes with them. They're just they're not the top of the game anymore, and that's all right. Next up, we have a Leagues of Votan. Leagues of Votan. This is clearly not their actual codex, but it says Leagues of Votan, so we're gonna use it. So Leagues of Votan. So they're chilling here in that B tier, right? Leagues of Votan. They can still kill anything. They have no problems killing you. But that's where their game basically starts and ends. They table you and they win, or they don't table you and they lose. That's basically how it goes. Now, good players can kind of play this around this a little bit. Their secondaries are not as terrible as I think people say they are. Prospectors is actually pretty solid. It gives you the ability to kind of spike and get extra victory points. Lay Claim, I do think sucks. Lay Claim is a terrible choice, but it does kind of play into Votan's strengths, which is tabling you. I actually still maintain, and people argue with me about this, they're wrong. I still maintain that unnerfed Votan would have beat the pants off of unnerfed Leviathan Nids. Votan is still very strong, and I still get very worried when I play them, even when I'm playing them with my Orcs, where I do have an advantage on the secondary game. Votan is still very, very nasty. They also completely crush Chaos Knights. They completely crush Custodes. So they have some good counters into some really good armies up there. Yeah, that's it. Space Marines. Guys, I am not going to go through every Space Marine army. It's just too much, and everyone else does it, so I'm not going to bother. Here's the deal, guys. Space Marines are in this. It's just what it is. I know Imperial Fist, maybe not. But actually, I think Imperial Fist are a heck of a lot better than most people give them credit for right now. Seeing as you can just... Heavy bolters are good again. You can spam those bad boys and have them exploding on 6s with 4 rerolls. Not a terrible choice. But I'm not going to say Imperial Fist are, the top choice. Here's the 2 top armies right now. The 2 top armies in Space Marines are very easily Iron Hands and Space Wolves. Space Wolves are scary. And the thing about it is I don't know if I don't know which one's better. Is it going to be Space Wolves or is it Iron Hands? Yes, Iron Hands are still great. They did get a fairly significant nerf with the Codex Warfare points. So now they actually don't score nearly the amount of points they used to. But they still kill everything. I'm going to... Controversial opinion here. I think Space Wolves are the best army in the game right now. I know. I think Space Wolves are the best army in the game right now. Because you can have the entire army with jetpacks. They all have storm shields, so everyone has a 4-up invuln. So you're essentially running a army of bodies with thunderhammers, melta-guns, storm shields, and jetpacks. So they're Custodes that are really fast, and they all have meltas. You can run a army of Space Wolves with, oh my gosh, what was it? It was like, you can have over 50-something melta-guns in them because of their ability to take the Wolf Guard and the Terminator Sergeant. They hit unbelievably hard. They're unbelievably fast, and they shoot like whoa. I actually I think Space Wolves are the strongest army in the game. If I'm running into Space Wolves with my Orcs, I don't think it's possible to win without just crazy stupid dice things happening. My Custodes, I haven't played the matchup with the Custodes. I'm tempted to think it's a really tough match. I think Space Wolves are the top army in the game right now. Really, really do. Iron Hands are still obviously great. Tau, where are we at, Tau? Tau are like Votan. They will kill the crap out of you, but if they don't, they lose. And that's just the truth. Their secondary game is not that bad. They do have decent secondaries. Now, I'm going to spill some secrets here. I have a buddy who is running Tau, and holy crap, he has made a build that is very challenging to beat. It's it's a bit of a skew list, but he's running 9 Devilfish with 90 Breachers. This is terrifying. It is so strong. It counters GSC. It counters demons. It counters everything. Like, how do you crack 9 Devilfish and 90 Breachers? It is amazing how difficult that is to kill. And that's a build that is brand new. My buddy Rasmus, he developed it. He's an incredible player. Maybe we'll see it spread to other tournaments and see how it does. But outside of that build, which is brand new, Tau are a solid B tier because they're going to kill you. But they're going to have a hard time winning if they don't kill you. I know I felt really bad. I was playing against, what's his name? Anyway, he was a very, very good player out of Ireland. And I was running a triple kill rig list. And my kill rigs outshot his Riptides. Oh, that was kind of brutal. But anyway, it was a fun game. So let's look at Thousand Suns. Thousand Suns are at the bottom of the army or of the tier right now. They're hanging out with Death Guard. I don't see how you win with them. It's not hard to kill them anymore. They can still bring Flamers, and Flamers are actually still pretty decent. They're a little expensive, and they don't have the killing power. They don't have any ability to deal with anti-tank. They have no anti-tank capacity essentially, and that's just the hard cold truth. Tyranids are decent. They're not in a bad place. Everyone says, oh, they're horrible. No, they're really not. They're pretty freaking decent. There's an argument we can maybe say Tyranids are top of C tier. And let's just do that. Let's put Tyranids top of C tier. But maybe bottom of B tier is a better place for them. Their turbo guns are still incredible. They're still a data sheet check. Their secondaries kind of suck. But that's okay because they are still very usable. I know they still have Venomthropes, which are one of the best codex data sheets in the entire game. Venomthropes, oh my gosh. I did not realize how strong they were until my buddy Svinung just spanked me in a match. I know I ran my Beast Boss on Squigosaur, who's like essentially unkillable, and he kills everything in return into those squiggly boys. Those Venom Throats just annihilated him with their auto wounding, or not auto wounding, but their wounding on 2s. It's just they're insane. You can get those things with 5 attacks each, hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, wounding on 2s, AP2. It's silly how much damage those things can do. So yeah, Tyranids are in a top of C, maybe bottom of B. Not a bad place, not a great place. Let's look at Jakari. I think Jakari are in a good place. I'm going to put them actually probably above Leagues of Votan. Jakari just got stronger Grotesque and stronger Cronoses and Taluses again. And they were already doing pretty good. This is just an example of a codex that is just resilient to GW. GW has slapped Jakari so many times, and these guys are still pretty good. They're not crushing the competition. You're not saying, oh, I'm just auto gonna lose when I run it across Jakari. But they are in a good freaking place, and they have the ability to just spread out and hold the battlefield. They have all the MSUs in the world that they need. They have all the damage they need. Incubi are great. They have access to fight last ever. They still have some of the best combat characters in the game. Jakari are awesome, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Let's look at the Genesteel Occult. Genesteel Occult. Now, Genesteel Occult have the highest win rate in the game, but everyone's going to laugh at me. They're an A tier. They're not S tier. They're real good. They're real strong, but it's not impossible to outplay them. I know I generally don't struggle with Genesteel Occult, but to be fair, Genesteel Occult was the very first army I started playing, so I actually understand the army very well. I think one of the things that Genesteel Occult really relies on is the fact that other people don't understand Genesteel Occult, right? So the only people who understand Genesteel Occults are the people who play Genesteel Occults. And that might be why I don't have too much of an issue against them. But the way I look at it is, if you're a top tier player, you're going to understand the codex you're going against. And I know Genesteel Occults definitely crush at GTs and things like this, but if I'm running my Orcs, Genesteel Occults loses. They just do. If I'm running my Custodes, Genesteel Occults don't have a good chance. I know a member on my WTC team. He's very, very good at Genesteel Occults. But we've spoken about it, and there's a lot of hard counters to Genesteel Occults. Like there's a lot of them. The nice thing about Genesteel Occults is that Genesteel Occults have the ability to mitigate the weaknesses they have against other armies. Through the custom cult creeds. So they can do things like give everyone baby transhuman. That by itself is like a 30 or 40% increase in durability, which is very, very strong. They have amazing secondary play. Everyone's like, oh no, they lost Broodworm, what a nerf. No, they're just going to take behind enemy lines instead. They're going to max behind enemy lines, and they're going to get bonus CP, which they really like. Genesteel Occults hit like a freaking truck. I don't think there's any... I could be wrong when I say this, but I don't really think there's any other codex in the game that has access to that much damage 3 at +1 to wound. Genesteel Occults have so much damage 3 at +1 to wound. They can move block the crap out of you. They can smash you in melee with a clutch Alkalite squad. They can shoot you to crap with their neophyte squads, and they can just score like whoa. So they're in a great place. They score points like amazingly well. They have some resurrection shenanigans they can do. I have an entire video dedicated to how to play against Genesteel Occults. I'll link that below if you guys are struggling with playing against them, because they're tricky. But that is their strength. Their strength is they're tricky. All right, so let's move on to Imperial Knights. Imperial Knights, I'm going to go C. They're not D tier, because the reality is that if they go first and they get their buffs off, it can be a problem to handle Knights. Imperial Knights suck if they go second. Like, if they go second, I'm not sure how they win. Okay, that's just the fate of Imperial Knights right now. They can put out a crazy amount of mortal wounds. If you guys don't know why I'm saying that, it's because when the big knights give like their buffs or bondsman abilities or buffs to the small knights in the Imperial Knights Codex, the small knights will get -1 damage and a 4-up invuln. So they can become actually very, very hard to kill. And if you don't have the tools to do it, then you just don't have the tools to do it. They have a ton of OPSEC, so they're going to hold objectives really, really well. They're good, man. I'm actually putting them probably top of C tier, because they're in a very solid place. They're just if they go second, they lose. It just is what it is. And if you go second and you lose, it's kind of hard for me to put you in B, you know? All right, so let's look at AdMech. AdMech. All right, this is a really tough decision, but I think I'm going to put them at the bottom of B. AdMech, the entire army essentially has a 5-up invul now. Their Cataphrons got core back, but our win rate when we look at them is something like, what was it, 33%? All of the people who were playing AdMech at a really high level are now playing Iron Hands at a really high level. So we're not seeing AdMech dominate. They are in a very good place, everyone. We're just not seeing how good they are because none of the players who are good at AdMech are playing AdMech right now. I've discussed this with one of my friends who's a very, 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 very high-level AdMech player who's currently playing Leagues of Votan. And I was just asking him what he thought about AdMech, and we went through some of the stats that they had, and it's just, man, it's crazy how strong they are right now. But the problem is a new person can't pick up the AdMech codex because it takes so much to learn that codex. Heck, when I play AdMech opponents at a GT, I'm just praying that they're honest because I have no idea if what they're saying is true or not. So I just trust what they say about their army because it's so convoluted. You're not going to have any newbie be able to pick that codex up, especially not with a month and a half to go in the edition. So we're not going to see them do anything in tournaments. But if you had a person who knew how to run AdMech who actually decided to pick up AdMech again, instead of running their leagues or their Iron Hands or something like that, man, AdMech would be actually pretty terrifying. And because of that, they get a solid B rating. Let's look at the Adeptus Sororitas. These girls, solid B rating. They did get some nerfs, so when they lost Armor of Contempt, that was actually a pretty big hit to them. But they also have a lot of boost as well. So these girls, they are getting the ability to strategic reserve for free was really awesome for them. When they got the ability to strat reserve for free, listen to what they can do. They can now drop all their rhinos. They don't need rhinos anymore because they can guarantee a charge out of strat reserve with Repentia or whatever like that. They have a lot of play right now, but they lost a little too much durability. So that's where they go. They go down there. What's next? I think we have Chaos Demons. Chaos Demons are going into the S tier. And the reason why Chaos Demons are going into the S tier, and I don't think they're that good, but the results do actually speak for themselves. I know the only time I've ever lost to Demons was against Kit Smith Hanna, who's one of the guys over at Warhammer, and those guys are awesome. And dude, he annihilated me. I actually made a video dedicating just how badly he spanked me. They have the tools to play against any army in the entire game. They just they have to capitalize on other people's mistakes, I think. Now, the current build for them is going to be the Fiends, Fiend spam, because Fiends are just absolutely incredible. Flamers are still very good. People who think that Flamers aren't good, incorrect. Yeah, you can still get them rerolls from Bellacore or whatever. So those things can still essentially hit with 100% accuracy. Flamers are still very, very good. And their big nasties are still very, very gross. Phase Cap Bloodthirster, who ignores phase caps. Oh, so strong. Keep that guy away from my gas. They're real dang good. Darn it. You know what I just realized is I don't have a tile here for World Eaters. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this out for World Eaters. So this can be World Eaters. Forgive me, everyone. So just pretend this is World Eaters. Let's talk about World Eaters here. World Eaters are a B tier army. And I'll put them at the top of B. So World Eaters are a B tier army. Sorry, guys. I know I just don't have a book here. They have the best secondaries in the game. They're going to score all the points. But they are extremely, extremely easy to play around. Lord Avocado, or Invocatus, has one of the coolest and best warlord traits in the game. Pre-game, he gets to allow 2 units to move a full movement. And since he's a Lord on Juggernaut, he still gives them +2 inches to their move if they're core. So you can take 2 units of 8 bound and move them 11 inches. And then let's say you go first, you move them 11 inches, and they don't have to end that movement 9 inches away from the enemy. So they can literally just go 11 inches, and then they can move 11 inches, and then they can charge. So they get a 22-inch movement turn 1. Hello, that is terrifying. The problem with it is you can still move block the crap out of them. So if you take 2 units of infiltrators, or 2 of anything that has the infiltrate keyword or the forward deploy, like in my orcs, I just have 2 units of commandos, of 5-man commandos, and I just put them across the line, and I give the World Eater opponent 1 lane where he can move his guys, which is useless. At which point, that Warlord trait was useless, and then he's not going to get to me. I'm going to wand him, and I'm going to kill him. It's just how it is. They trade very, very well. They definitely still have play, but if you know how to deal with a trick, they can't do it. Now, and I am of the opinion that Disciples of the Red Angels is actually the way to be running World Eaters. I think you bring Angron and you bring a Demon Patrol with Scarbrand in it. And what you do is when you go against Iron Hands, when you go against Guard, when you go against whoever, you move Angron all the way up, then you summon Scarbrand in, and then Scarbrand gets a 6-inch rerollable charge into whatever. And then Angron's going to have, since he has a 16-inch move, he's probably going to have like an 8 to 9-inch charge against anything. Well, when Scarbrand gets in, he's going to tag 4 or 5 units, direct all your attacks to 1 unit. Then they won't be able to fall back. So Scarbrand won't be able to be a shot. And those units can't fall back and shoot into other things as well. If Angron makes it in, you can take like 3/4 of a guard army and just say, sorry, you can't play this turn. So I think Disciples of the Red Angel is probably the way to play. We're not seeing it played that way for reasons, but I think that's the way that that you play World Eaters, and I think that would be a much scarier army. I just don't see anyone doing it. So if Disciples of the Red Angel was the way people were playing, I'd probably have World Eaters up in the A territory, but that's just where it is. I think this is it, right? Space Marines, Admech, Ashton Miltaram, Aldari, Jakari. Oh, I don't have a Harlequins book here either, do I? Harlequins are okay, guys. They're B tier. So we'll just... Here, Aldari can go there as well. Harlequins right now are probably a lot stronger than they were in Nephilim, I think. Because a 5 invuln, while that does make them a lot more vulnerable, and you are going to see them less on mid-tier tables, they're actually in a much better place. You know what? They might actually be A-tier because they got all their stratagems and other, like, unnerfed on the Pew Pew Man. What's it called? The Death Jester. Death Jester is a beast again. So they got rid of all the other nerfs that they had. So they're solid A-tier army. They're going to be real strong. They're going to dominate a lot of people. The reason why I have them at the bottom of A-tier is because they're going to struggle against all the other A-tier and S-tier armies. The only A-tier army that they're good into, I think, well, maybe 2. I think they're quite good into Genesteel Occults. I think they're quite good into Demons. And they can play into Astra Militarum. I don't think they're good in Astra Militarum, but their speed does allow them just to get in really close. My buddy Patrick, I watched him play them in a really, really interesting way to take a win against a Guard player at a tournament in Sweden maybe a month or 2 ago. And he did a pretty epic job of that. So yeah, the Harlequins, they have all the speed in the world. They have board control, but they're very fragile. They auto lose to Chaos Knights. I don't see how Harlequins beat Orcs. I don't see how they can beat Custodes. I actually can see them beating Genesteel Occult quite well. And Demons, maybe they might actually have play into Demons as well. Now that I'm talking it out loud, I think I'm convincing myself Harlequins are a little bit better than I was going to give them credit for. But that's pretty much the tier list. I may have missed 1 or 2, but those 1 or 2 probably don't matter. The reason why this tier list looks a little empty is because I'm not separating out all the Space Marines. Yes, we know Raven Guard and Imperial Fist are down here. The ones that matter are going to be your Iron Hands and your Space Wolves right now. Dark Angels are probably solidly in the A tier right now, guys. Dark Angels because they've got the Raven Wing. Raven Wing is still nasty, everyone. Raven Wing is gross. You're just not going to see it that often because you're probably going to be pivoting into Space Wolves if you're a Space Marine player. So that's it. That is where we are at for most likely the entirety of the rest of the edition. your Space Wolves, Iron Hands are the best army in the game, followed by your Astra Militarum, your Elves, and your Demons. I'm actually going to put the Demons right in front of the Elves, just because of that mental fatigue factor that we spoke about with the Eldari. In our A tier, these are great codexes that crush and do really, really well. We have our Chaos Knights, our Orcs, our Custodes, Genesteel Occults, and our Harlequins. It says Eldari, it's a trap. General Akbar. Then in our B tier, we're going to lead off with our World Eaters, then our Robot Boys, the Necrons, Jakari, Leaves of Votan, Tau, Mech, and Adeptus Sororitas. And then rounding out the usable but not great armies, we've got Imperial Knights, Tyranids, and Chaos Space Marines. And then the worst armies in the game are going to be your Death Guard and your Thousand Suns. It's not because I don't like those armies. I do. I actually think Death Guard is one step away from being a very good army. They're just not. That's just where they are. Looking super forward to 10th edition and all the changes it brings. If you guys hated my analysis, let me know. If you loved my analysis, let me know. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, put them in the comment chat. I'll definitely respond. I basically respond to every single comment that comes up. Because I appreciate your time and I appreciate you all watching. If you like the way that I kind of go through some tactical analysis of my choices and why I make these declarations, please donate me a like and a subscribe, and I'll be sure to bring you plenty more content. Anyway, until next time, everyone, I love you all and I appreciate you, and good luck and happy crumping, my lovely wargamers. Bye-bye.